Before I begin, I want to give a little disclaimer as I will be talking about trauma, that I am not by any means trying to say that trauma itself, the trauma, the thing that caused the trauma is a good thing. Like if it were something horribly tragic or anything, whatever the thing is, I'm not here to say that that's a good thing and you should see that from a different perspective and appreciate that quote unquote bad things happen. And I'll get into a little bit more deeper into this, but I want to be very clear that I'm not sitting here saying that you should be happy that bad things happen to you. That's not the point. Trauma is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. A lot of people use it for anything these days. The slightest inconvenience could be trauma. And it's become this throwaway word because people are learning more about trauma and how it's affecting who they are and the impact it has on your life, how you make decisions, especially when it comes to childhood trauma. That's something that a lot of people are talking about now, which is a great thing, I think. I think it's great that we can unpack this more and talk about childhood trauma and how it affects who we become as people and parents, because that's a good sign. That means that hopefully a lot of the things that our parents and grandparents went through, they weren't able to have these conversations about healthy communication. And I'm generalizing, of course, but I'm saying in general, older generations weren't the best at communicating and caring about feelings as much. It was more about survival. And if you think about our history, it makes sense, especially in the early 1900s. It was about surviving during the war and all these terrible times, the Great Depression, and things have changed. Of course, we still have terrible things that happen today, but we can now talk about these topics more and talk about trauma and the effects of it and how we can be better people. I want to be better about looking at the camera. As I was editing the last few episodes I did, I look around constantly, and I'm sure it's really annoying. I don't know if that's annoying. It comes from me being a trained actor. And when you're on camera, you do not look in the camera. It looks very weird if you're doing a scene and you're looking right into the lens. But now it's the opposite. If I look around and try to avoid the camera or look right beside it, because usually if you're doing auditions or self-tapes or whatever you're doing with acting, you really place your subject or who you're speaking to. Ugh, I have a hair in my mouth. Right next to the camera so you can still see your eye line. So I have to get used to this because it's not really natural to me, and I also haven't been doing this for a while, so bear with me. But I know it looks weird when I look around. It's just from me feeling weird about it, so I just have to get used to it. But then I feel like if I just look into the camera the whole time, it's like I'm staring, and that's weird. Back to the topic. Trauma is not all bad. I want to be clear that I'm not saying whatever happened to you, if you went through something horrible as a child, abuse or neglect or anything terrible, I'm not saying that that is a good thing. I want to be crystal clear here. I want to use my words very, very carefully because this is a very sensitive topic and I'm fully aware of that. But when I say trauma is not all bad, I'm saying that, first of all, not all trauma is equal, obviously. And some things are traumatic, but also inherently a good thing. For example, birth. Birth is, I was going to say one of the first, but is the first trauma. Hopefully you're not experiencing anything in the womb. Trauma is one of the first, I'll just say one of the first traumas that did I say that right? Birth is one of the first traumas that you experience in life, and that unites us all because it's very traumatic to go through birth, both for the baby and the mother and probably a lot of people involved. It's a traumatic event, but it's also a beautiful thing. Birth, life, and having more people on earth and having a baby. I mean, that's a beautiful, amazing thing, but also it's super painful. I don't know. I've been told it's pretty painful. And it's traumatic. It's especially traumatic for the baby too, because they were in this nice, warm, dark place, and now they're in this world and lights, and it's a traumatic event. That's what I mean when I say that all trauma isn't equal, I guess, and it's not all inherently bad. There can be good sides to trauma. I want to talk about something that I just learned, a term. It's called post-traumatic growth. And I like this term because it basically summarizes what I think about this topic. I'm going to read from my phone, from my notes, because I don't want to say this wrong when I'm quoting somebody. It's a term or a concept developed by psychologist Richard Tedeschi, I don't know, sorry. And Lawrence, oh Lord, couldn't he just be Smith? Lawrence Calhoun, Calhoun, Calhoun. You can look him up yourself. I apologize. I'm not probably saying this correctly. People who experience traumatic events can also experience positive changes, like increased resilience and coping skills. You can develop deeper relationships and empathy. You can have new perspectives and new priorities. You can experience personal growth and self-awareness, or even spiritual and philosophical growth. Post-traumatic growth doesn't mean the trauma, and this is what I was saying, doesn't mean the trauma wasn't painful or a difficult thing, but rather that growth can emerge from the experience. It's not about minimizing the trauma, but about finding ways to heal and grow. I got that from Meta AI, so shout out to Meta. I really enjoy using AI, but I also get very frustrated by it because sometimes I ask for the simplest prompts and like trying to create an image, and it's always a headache. Like, I feel like I'm asking such a simple thing, and then I get so frustrated and I have to be like, Nikki, breathe. It's a robot. Like I was saying, all trauma isn't inherently a bad thing. The event itself can be a terrible thing, and I'm not sitting here saying it's good, you should be happy it happened. I guess this is more so an optimistic view of something terrible, that something good can come from it, right? The result now, because now we're in the aftermath. What can you learn from it? Is there something you can take away from it where you maybe need to do something differently to avoid it in the future? But there are also traumatic things that happen, like natural disasters, right? That's out of your control. Or maybe something happened to you as a child, like physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse. There are a lot of things that unfortunately are not in your control. But as you get older, there are things you can learn from it, and you can become a better person and grow and not allow it to hold you back and not allow it to do what you want to do in life, because it's a horrible thing. As someone who's experienced terrible forms of trauma and abuse in my life, I definitely let it get to me, where I was like, I like felt like I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in this body. I just wanted to go back in time, erase it from my life, or be hypnotized so I could get rid of the memory, something. But I've learned some really great ways to cope with it. First of all, working through it. You have to actually go through it and think about it and go back in it, which is terrible. But you do, because it helps you work through it. It helps you kind of make sense of it in a way. And sometimes you can't make sense of it because you're like, how could someone do this to me? Or how could this even happen? But it's about thinking through it and really processing it, because ultimately just pushing it away and pretending it didn't happen is not the healthiest thing to do. And for myself, once I did that, when I worked through it, I thought about it and thought about what I can do different. Because one thing I had to come to a realization with myself is that a lot of things that I've experienced weren't my fault. I had to switch my memory card. It filled up. And I wish my camera would... I guess it does make a little noise when it turns off, but I wish it was a louder noise, like bing, 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 change your memory card. I don't know. I'm sure there are more advanced cameras that do that. Mine is probably a little outdated. As I was saying, I have gone through terrible things in my life, and I had to learn that, no, it wasn't my fault. This person did something to me, but there's things I can do to avoid it. I can look out for certain red flags. Now I'm making sure it's recording. I can look out for certain red flags. I can pick up on certain behaviors that I don't appreciate or want in my life, certain type of energy, and I can set boundaries and I can cut people off. That's my strength, my power. And those are things that I learned that were quite helpful for me, because now I can avoid future situations and become a better person. And that's what I'm getting at today, because it's so important to understand that you can't live a life free of trauma. You can't live a perfect life that has no problems, because it's just part of life. And like I said, natural disasters, they're things that we cannot control. Things can happen that we have zero control over. So we have to learn how to deal with it and become stronger. Speaking of which, I also wrote down, I've heard parents say this to me because of how they grew up, because they were probably abused or experienced terrible things. So they're like, now I'm so scared. I don't want to I don't want to traumatize my child. Of course they don't want to abuse them. I don't want to traumatize my child. I'm so scared. I don't want to traumatize her or him. So I've heard parents say that, and in saying so, they basically just allow their child to do whatever, say whatever, and have no control. But this is silly, because again, you can't avoid trauma. You can not be abusive, of course. That's most definitely in your control. You can be a good person and do your very best, but you can't avoid your children going through trauma, because things are going to happen that you can't control. God forbid some kid says something terrible to them at school. You can prepare your child for how they react and respond to that. You can empower them. You can build them up. You can tell them the right thing to do, what resources they can use, what adult they can go and speak to. There are a lot of things you can do, but you cannot bubble wrap them and lock them up in a room and say, okay, well, I don't want you to be traumatized. And that would be extremely traumatizing, to be locked up and never be able to leave your house. So there's no way to avoid trauma. If you're an adult, you have to make yourself tough. If you already didn't have those qualities from when you were young, but if you're a parent, that's what you have to give your child, is a shield. Teach them how to protect themselves from as many poor or bad situations as possible, but also teach them how to handle things when inevitably things go wrong, because it's just part of life. So it's better to know how to be prepared for things versus, I just want to protect them from any trauma. I don't want them to be traumatized, because it doesn't work that way. As I was saying, I believe the term trauma is overused. So what really is trauma? Trauma, I'm reading also another definition from AI. It's experiencing or witnessing a distressing event. It could be physical, emotional, psychological, or exposure to actual threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence. The event overwhelms the person's ability to cope, which leads to significant distress, fear, or helplessness. That is what trauma is. Now, I say it's overused, but it's also a bit complicated because it's such a personal thing. Some things might actually be traumatizing to you, but if someone has a slight inconvenience and they go, oh my God, I was so traumatized, it's like, no, you weren't, you're fine. But there are some things that are truly traumatizing for some people, and for some people it is not going to have the same effect on them for various reasons. It could be based on how you grew up, what you've already been exposed to, unfortunately. Maybe you're just a bit tougher, you have a stronger personality. Some people are more sensitive, and I don't believe sensitive is a bad thing. Sensitive can be a wonderful quality. It just means you're more in touch with your feelings and maybe you're more empathetic. But some people are more sensitive, and we all come in different shapes and sizes, and we all react to things differently, and things are going to affect us differently. So it is very personal, but I still think it's overused. I think people throw around the term a lot, and it's a little bit of a shame because that takes away from actual traumatic events. Which brings me to my next thing I want to talk about. Because I believe people, especially online, especially influencers and that influencer culture, it's all about this was traumatizing or this was bad or negative or hate. I strongly resent the fact that this is where we are as a society, where any minor inconvenience, any type of negativity is just hate. Like if you receive critique on a video or on your content or in life, it doesn't even have to be online, you immediately, or most people who are content creators, they perceive that as hate, and even their followers, because they'll get very defensive and protect them and like, how dare you say that? It's like, well, if someone posts content about they're on a boat with their baby and the baby's not wearing a life jacket or they're not wearing a seatbelt properly, it's like, that's not hate. If someone is like, hey, please make sure your kid doesn't die, like, we just want them to be okay. And you're like, oh, you're such a hater, how dare you tell me what to do and how to live. That is really annoying to me, that this is where we are as a society, where you can't even voice your opinion without it being perceived as hate and negativity. And there is hate and negativity if you're dumb or I don't like you. I've gotten comments before where it's like, oh, women, or oh, you're so stupid or whatever. I'm like, thanks, I can't do anything with this, but thank you for using your time to say that to me. That's completely useless to me. I just filed that under trash. But if you genuinely give me feedback, I appreciate it, because I'm like, I'm only human. I need to grow like anyone else. But we don't have that openness, it seems, in our society. Right now it's all about being nice and gentle and careful, tiptoe around their feelings, and be careful how you say that. You don't want to offend them. If you create content online, I believe that anything you say is fair game to comment on. And you are fair game. I don't condone disrespect or hating on someone. The sitting in mom's basement syndrome, I don't condone that, of course. But if I post things online, anything I say here on my YouTube channel, anything that my words, anything that I do, I believe is fair game for anyone to comment on, to say I disagree or I think you should change, whatever. That's totally fair. But it's not cool, like I said, obviously, to come after someone's looks or be disrespectful or anything, and absolutely not cool to go after someone like my family, my friends, anyone in my life. That's also no, absolutely not. But there are certain things, like I said, I'm just going to reiterate, what I say is fair game to comment on, and I am fully aware of that as someone who posts online, because I know the type of people that exist in the world, and I'm speaking to anybody. I know I'm not just like talking to 10 people who really like me. It's like anyone can consume this and they can see this and say, well, I think this is dumb for whatever reason, and that's their right to disagree. Again, I hope we can live in a society where it's delivered with respect, but still we're able to comment freely on what we think. And I think it's okay to disagree, and I think it's okay for two people who respect and like each other to disagree. But we've kind of lost that now, where it's like, I'm so scared. What if they don't like me if I say this? It's like, no, you can express your opinion. I say it every day, well, especially on here. Every time I post, I'm like, share your opinion with me, because I truly care. And I also don't need to come online to just have an ego boost. I'm not here to first people tell me you're amazing and you're perfect, because I'm not. I'm a human being. I'm here to learn and grow like anybody else. And I have so many things that I need to work on in my own life. So I don't sit here proclaiming that I know everything, I have the answers for everything. I don't. I'm asking questions every day. I'm learning every day. I'm trying to be better every day. I make mistakes every day, but I'm also open enough to be okay to hear critique. And if you're not prepared for that, you should not be online. That's my opinion. If you cry easily over everything, I do cry easily over everything though. But I'm saying if you're just super sensitive to anything anyone says to you that might be perceived as negative, you probably shouldn't be online. Especially people who are sharing very personal things online, and they're not seemingly aware that people are going to say what they're going to say, especially if you have a big following. People are going to express their opinion. They're going to say what they think about choices you make. Are you ready for that? Because if not, again, I think it's time to get off the internet, or again, just toughen yourself up and realize, you know what? I can handle this, and maybe I can filter through what people are saying, because some of it might actually be useful. I believe it's important that we all see life as an opportunity to grow and be better every day. No matter where you are in life, we can all always improve and be open to critique, because it's healthy and it's important. And that's how I'm going to tie it all together today. And something to think about is how trauma affects us, and allowing it to become something that's actually a useful tool versus just this terrible thing. Because ultimately bad things happen, and like I said, I'm not sitting here saying that that's a good thing, you should celebrate bad things. I'm saying they're gonna happen. Unfortunately, things are outside of our control. It's what we choose to do with it after that matters. What can you do with this? Can you learn from it? Can you be better? Can you help other people overcome things? Can you spread awareness? Whatever it is. We're sensitive. We're very, very sensitive in today's society. And it's unfortunate, I think. Like, man, why can't we just... Well, I do think it's also on the person stating their opinion. It's also their responsibility in how they do it, right? It's like they always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Very important. I definitely believe that. It's not just about being a jerk. You know, be sensitive to people. They're still people, and we feel hurt by things, because that's the human experience. We care about things, so things hurt us. But still, we have to balance that with, you still gotta be able to receive critique and be tough enough to deal with life. I hope you enjoyed listening today. Hope there's something you can take with you. And I hope you have a beautiful, lovely, wonderful day and week, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. And take care of yourself as always.